Hey, this is Chris with Hacking Your Leadership. On today's discussion on employee engagement, I want to talk about the importance of purpose in driving employee engagement. I think a lot of leaders and a lot of organizations don't necessarily put as much weight as they should on what purpose means to people when they're deciding how engaged they're going to be in their job. And I think focusing on purpose and looking at what an organization's purpose is, defining it correctly and owning it and standing by it, I think is a very, very important step to raising and maintaining employee engagement, because there's no one purpose that is better than another. It's defined by the employees and whether or not they fit in. And when companies do this incorrectly, it's that they don't believe they live up to a purpose, but they want to define one anyway that attracts people, and then they attract the wrong people because they're attracting people to that purpose that they say they are, and then the actions don't align with that purpose, and then those people don't work out, and they go, well, why did this person work out? It's like, well, you have to get very good at figuring out what your purpose is as an organization and be able to look at yourself in the mirror and be honest with yourself and make sure that the actions actually align with that purpose. And if they don't, one of those two things needs to change, right? Either the actions need to change or the purpose needs to change. And either's okay. They just need to align.
Yeah, can I give a real life example that I say sometimes?
Yeah, please. Definitely.
Yes, when places say things like, we want to be the best place to work.
Right.
Okay. What does that mean? Like
the best place for who?
Yeah, for who?
Right,
for
yeah.
what? Okay. And then on top of that, like, you don't get to decide if you're the best place to work.
Right.
Like, the people that work there do.
Right.
So like even by definition, if you say like we want to be the best place to work, you're saying that are you not now? You're I'm just like trying to understand, but like to your point, when it comes to defining a purpose, the real element is not in the words or the idea of or what you think you want people to hear or see or whatever that is, because then you attract people to a purpose that doesn't actually exist. Or to your point, you don't have an action or structure or intention or strategies built around bringing that actual purpose to life. And there's plenty of examples where you can say, hey, this is our purpose. And do we always get there? No. Is it always perfect? No. Is it like, is it, what we want right now today? Maybe not. But like it's a really clear, like there's steps and there's clarity in getting to that purpose. There's that purpose is alive and well in conversations and strategies and debates. Like it's really clear that the leaders of an organization are living that purpose and then have said, here's what we're living. This is aligned with also where we want to go. And this may be a challenge every day to make sure that we're doing this, but this is our real actual purpose versus just saying a full-on aspirational goal of like, yes, we aspire to have that purpose, but we've built nothing into our system to try to bring that to life. Just maybe one day we'll actually get there. And like, that's never going to work.
Right. I mean, aspiring to something is good, right? You want to aspire to things. So I'm looking at this from the standpoint of two different things here. So one, if you think about what is the purpose of anything? Well, the purpose of any system is what it does, right? That's the purpose of it. And so it's ridiculous to define your purpose as something that you constantly fail to do, right? Mm-hmm. But if that's the case, then how do you aspire, right? So if you aspiring to something implies that you are failing at it and aspiring to be better at it or to get better at it. But then if you think about, if you fail to do it, then it can't be your purpose. And I think that where those two things meet together is in this idea that yes, it can be aspirational. The purpose of an organization or of a system can be something that it is failing to do, as long as there's a strategy in place backed by real line items of expected behaviors and interactions and outcomes that are on the minutia level, like little things that add up to medium-sized things, that add up to larger things, that you can be failing at the larger thing, but as long as you can as long as you can drill into that and figure out why you failed at the larger thing by looking at where the little failures are and then taking steps to fix those little failures, the assumption has to be that eventually, on a long enough timeline, you will get to that the aspiration will become reality. And the reason why I think that this is so important when thinking about employee engagement is that the employees aren't judging you and in terms of how they're deciding to engage with their jobs based on the failure of the purpose as a whole. They're judging you based on the failures of the individual interactions that happen day after day after day. They're completely fine with it failing as a whole because it's aspirational, as long as they see that it's moving in the right direction because of those individual interactions. It's when those individual interactions aren't there that they go, well, why do they even say that this is their purpose when they can't even do this one little thing correctly? Then you have a drop in engagement. So it is absolutely important to have it be aspirational, but also have it be something that can be measurable and definable in terms of individual little successes and failures over time. I want to go over some of the things that you can do as a leader to make sure you're doing this correctly. But first, I want to give a word from one of our sponsors. All right, if you're a leader of people and you're trying to figure out how to make your purpose less aspirational and more strategic and definable, start with that aspiration and then define it yourself. Figure out what it takes to get there. If your purpose is to be the place that all the customers come to for this thing, okay, well, why would they come there? Well, they would come there for, people who are really smart and know what they're doing and are really nice. Okay, great. Well, how do you get people who are smart? How do you get people who know what they're doing? How do you get people that are nice? Well, do you hire them that way? Do you train them that way? Is it a combination of both? Define it. Continue to drill down deeper and deeper and deeper until you get to actual behaviors and decisions and outcomes that are measurable, objectively measurable, whether you succeeded or failed at this. Because you can't say, have I succeeded or failed at being the place that everybody wants to go to? That's not a real thing. That you succeed or fail in the little things that then add up to that. And so if you can't define your larger purpose by a series or group of a large number of individual definable behaviors and outcomes and goals, then it is truly just aspirational and not strategic at all.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think that it's got to be like... It's one of those things too. I think that because they're buzzwords and people talk about them all the time, that you feel like you have to have this purpose. We've had plenty of episodes and talked about like companies to work for and what you want to do when you go work for an organization, and like how do you figure out like what do they stand for, what do they do, are you aligned with why they exist, like all those types of things that we talk through. But to your point, like there's an element of this that is somewhat aspirational, as in like there has to be an acceptance that this will not always be, our purpose will not always live every single time, but it should live most of the time, and it should be clear in structure and cadence, that it is a part of what we do here. And it should be really easy to give examples. Like if you say this is your purpose, I should be able to say, and here's 4 or 5 examples of that purpose coming to life in the decisions that we make, the things that we do, and maybe the impact that we have. Like you should be really easy to do that.
Right.
And that's why we always say that, like in an interview, like asking the recruiter, like, what's something that in the last 6 months has really made you feel proud of the organization that you work for? And if they go, and they can't think of something, right? Like that might tell you something about that. It's the same thing, with purpose, to say something like, hey, I know, one of the things that you say is a purpose of your organization is this. Can you give me an example of how you've seen that come to life, in the last year or so that you've been employed there? Again, it should be an easy thing to answer if in fact it's a real life part of, the organization or the leadership of the organization.
Yeah. And you saying that, it's made me think of something else too. And that's that I think you're actually more likely to succeed simply by defining it, because you said, it's not necessarily necessary to be living the purpose all the time. You just have to be able to show examples of it, like you're moving in that direction. And that resonates with me so much, because it's like, if I think about it in a very kind of like a micro level sense, I can aspire to be on the cover of, Muscle and Fitness magazine, but I'm not going to get there by sitting on my couch eating pizza. Right. So So if I say that I want to be on the cover of Muscle and Fitness magazine, I then have to define what that looks like. What do I have to do to get there? And I have to define that. And as soon as I define what it looks like, the 20 or 30 things that need to be done in order to get there, and if all of those things need to be done all the time, then does it matter that not all 30 things are done 365 days a year? No, not at all. If I'm doing 20 of the 30 things 320 days of the year, it might take maybe a little bit longer to get there, but I will get there eventually. And I don't end up dwelling or lingering on the failures. I think where we do ourselves a disservice is when we define the purpose or the goal aspirationally, and we don't define what that looks like in terms of behaviors. Then when we don't do the behaviors, we end up thinking we have failed at that goal. So it's the person who says, I'm going to go get healthy at the gym, and then they wake up one morning and they don't go to the gym, and they get depressed and disappointed themselves, and they fall off the wagon. They go, well, I'm done. I failed. It's like, no, you didn't fail at the aspiration. You had this little tiny failure in the middle, but the aspiration is made up of hundreds or thousands of individual decisions, and they don't all have to be the right decision. It just has to be moving in that direction the right way. More successes than failures. And as long as you're doing that, you will eventually get there. Defining it for yourself, no matter what your goal is, whether it's for yourself or your organization, defining it out strategically into individual line items will make you far less likely to get derailed by a perceived failure, and not allowing yourself to think that failure is indicative of the system as a whole, or like your purpose as a whole is not there. Thank you all for joining us in this discussion on employee engagement. We'll continue it next Thursday. You have a wonderful day.